Let's start with a really basic question. How can you ever trust an AI's decision if you can't trust the data it was built on? You can't. So in this explainer, we're diving deep into the governance that makes or breaks an AI, from the very first byte of data collected all the way to who's held accountable. You've heard this a million times, right? But in the world of AI, garbage in, garbage out is more than just a saying. It's pretty much an unbreakable law of physics. The quality and the fairness of your data directly dictate the quality and fairness of your model. An AI can't magically clean up biased or bad data. It's just going to amplify those flaws, and it'll do it with terrifying speed and scale.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through 4 key stages. First, we'll build that solid data foundation. Then, we'll figure out how to track the data's entire journey. After that, we'll get into the rigorous testing every single model has to go through. And finally, we'll put together the accountability blueprint that ties it all together.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Before you even think about training a model, you have to build this rock-solid data foundation. And that comes from strict, uncompromising governance. Honestly, this is where the battle for a trustworthy AI is usually won or lost.
This first part is all about discipline. It kicks off with a really simple question. Do you even have the legal right to be using this data? I mean, if you get that wrong, your whole project could be dead on arrival. Then, you've got to make sure the data is fit for purpose. This is huge for preventing something called function creep. Where data collected for one specific thing gets dangerously repurposed for something else entirely. And finally, data minimization. This isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a core defense. Only collecting what you absolutely need reduces your legal risk and the chance of baking in bias from the get-go.
Now, this 5 V's framework is a fantastic way to think about this strategically. Volume and velocity, they're going to tell you about your infrastructure needs. Variety forces you to plan how you're going to integrate everything, but from a governance perspective, veracity and value are where you really need to focus. Veracity is all about trust. Is this data accurate and reliable? And value makes sure you're not just collecting data for the sake of it, but that it actually aligns with a clear, defensible business goal.
All right, once you've got your data, you have to track it meticulously. And that means understanding 2 really important but different concepts, lineage and provenance. They might sound kind of similar, but trust me, they answer very different and very critical questions.
Okay, here's the key difference. Data lineage is all about the flow. It's the what and the how. What happened to the data as it moved through your systems? This is your secret weapon for debugging. If a model spits out a weird result, lineage lets you trace it all the way back to the source of the problem. Data provenance, on the other hand, is about the origin. It's the who and the where. Who created this data, and do we have the legal authority to use it? This is your key to staying compliant.
And this analogy just nails the difference perfectly. Think of data lineage as a car's GPS track. It shows you the entire route it took, every turn, every stop. But data provenance, that's the car's official title. It proves where it came from, who's owned it, and, most importantly, that it wasn't stolen. To really know the full, trustworthy story of your data, you absolutely have to have both. So our data foundation is set, its journey is mapped out, now we get to the really active part. This is where the model is actually built and validated. And this is not about running one simple test and calling it a day. We're talking about a comprehensive, non-stop regimen of rigorous testing. You see, the AI life cycle isn't a straight line from start to finish. It's a constant feedback loop. Model testing and evaluation might look like a single stage here, but really it's happening all the time. It's not just one gate the model has to pass through. It's this iterative process that informs everything, from the data you collect in the first place to how you monitor the model after it's deployed.
This quote really gets at the heart of modern AI testing. We've moved way past just asking, is the model accurate? Now, the questions are so much bigger. Is it secure? Is it robust enough to handle the complete chaos of real-world data? Can we actually interpret its decisions? And maybe, the most critical question of all, is it fair?
The best way to think about a good AI testing strategy is in layers. You start with the basics, your foundational software tests like unit and integration testing. Then you build on top of that with tests for performance and security. But the top layer, the one that's absolutely crucial for AI governance, is testing for bias, fairness, and interpretability. That's what ensures a model isn't just working correctly, but that it's also ethical and trustworthy.
So what does this actually look like? Well, for security, you have teams doing what's called red teaming. They're literally trying to break the model on purpose, throwing nasty inputs at it to find weaknesses before the bad guys do.
For fairness, you're using real statistical metrics like the adverse impact ratio to see if the model is treating one group of people differently than another. And for robustness, you're throwing all the messy, unexpected, and even malicious data you can find at it to see if it breaks.
And a really key strategy for making sure a model stays good over time is using a challenger model. The idea is pretty simple. You have your main champion model running in production. Then you run a new challenger model right alongside it, feeding them both the exact same data. This lets you compare performance, try out new ideas, and most importantly, spot if your main model is starting to drift or get worse over time.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important section. All of this hard work, the data governance, the journey mapping, all that rigorous testing, it's basically meaningless if you don't have a record of it. The final step is creating that blueprint for accountability through meticulous documentation.
Let's be crystal clear about this. Documentation is not optional. It is not an afterthought. And it's not just for things that a specific regulation tells you to write down. Every single important decision you make during the AI lifecycle needs to be recorded. This documentation is your proof that you did your due diligence. It's what saves you in an audit, it's how you manage risk, and it's the only real way to build lasting trust.
So when your testing finds a problem, and it always will, you need a process. You log every single issue, you figure out its root cause, you create a formal plan to fix it, and you document every step along the way. And the last step is critical. You assign clear ownership. Someone has to be on the hook for making sure that fix gets done and that it keeps working.
And this whole process creates this essential paper trail. It's your portfolio of evidence. It includes stuff like model cards that summarize what a model can and can't do, detailed logs of all your test results, and even advanced things like counterfactual explanations, which show exactly how changing an input would change the model's output. This whole collection of artifacts is what proves you're practicing responsible governance.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. An AI model is always changing, right? It can be updated or even replaced tomorrow. But the story of its creation, the data, the tests, the decisions, the risks you dealt with, that story is permanent. It's the record that proves accountability and builds trust. So you have to ask yourself, which one actually holds the real, lasting value?